As May comes to an end and we're getting closer and closer into summer, here is another good time to go through all the CDs I acquired throughout the month. As usual, we have a lot to get through and there's a lot of variety. And if you're new to these, this is where I just showcase what I picked up and I just give my first impressions on them. So if you enjoy these monthly CD hauls, don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and feel free to comment below your thoughts on any of the CDs that are shown, and you can share what you picked up this month. Alright, let's jump right into it. Breyer's Music Showcase is brought to you by the people over at Patreon. Pledge today and get access to exclusive perks. Link in the description. So like usual, I'm going to start by showcasing CDs that I'm really not going to talk about that much. And I only have one of these this month. And this album is called Brothers, and it's from a band called the Black Keys, and this came out in 2010. So this album was actually a Patreon request. Shout out to Scott from SoundLab Studios. And of course, if you don't know my Patreon page, I mean, if you don't know, I mean, you literally just saw an ad a second ago for it. But of course, this is where people can request albums for me to listen to, and this was one of them. And if you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts on this album, go head over to Patreon, become a member, and you have access to the album reaction. But I bought it purely because I wanted to, I guess I'm on a quest to own all my requested albums, I guess. So this was one of them, so I decided to go get it. So there you go. So with that short segment out of the way, now we move on to the segment where pretty much most of these, I think, yeah, pretty much a majority of these were bought from eBay, and maybe a couple were bought from Discogs. And this month was also me kind of finishing off a discography of a band I'm really into, and it's from a pretty well-known prog band, and that band is Gentle Giant. And I picked up pretty much the 4 remaining albums I needed to complete the studio discography. So we have Interview, which came out in 1976. And then following that, we have 1977's The Missing Piece, like the green cover. And then we have 1978's Giant for a Day. And then finally, we have their final album from 1980. We have Civilian. So there's all the remaining albums I needed to pick up. And I will give my brief thoughts on these. So starting with Interview, it's still a very good album, pretty strong. You know, they're still kind of on this kind of good run they've been on. Again, we all know Gentle Giants, well, most of us do, but they're very unique, probably one of the most unique prog bands that ever come out from the 70s, I would say. And this is still a very solid album, kind of a sort of a concept album about, you know, the music industry and promotion and all that stuff, hence the name. But I had a good time with this one. And then The Missing Piece is kind of an interesting album. It's often seen as the transitional album because by this point their popularity was not really that big, and so the record label decided to be like, hey, how about you guys start making some more commercial songs? And while this album does have some of that, there's still some of that classic Gentle Giant aspect that's still prevalent. Side 1 is the more commercial tracks. Probably my favorite song on the first side was 2 Weeks in Spain, which is oddly catchy. I think that's one of their stronger catchy numbers. But then you have stuff that didn't work, like Betcha Thought We Couldn't Do It, and yeah, I Wish You Didn't Do It. It's kind of them kind of doing a little stab at punk. And I don't know, I don't think Gentle Giant really did punk that well. But side 2 has some good moments, like Mountain Time, and probably my favorite song on here is Memories of Old Days. That's a really good one. So I do dig this album, but I guess for a lot of Gentle Giant fans, that's kind of where the cracks were starting to show. And it really showed its ugly head on Giant for a Day, which is them trying to do a full-blown, kind of more commercial album. And this is going to be another example where I wanted to like it more, to stick it to prog snobs, but I don't know. I guess Gentle Giant were really not meant for the commercial landscape because, you know, it's okay. It's not a horrible album. It's not the worst album I've heard in my life. But most of these songs were just kind of generic, honestly. But still, I had to complete it, so I have it. But it's definitely probably my least favorite Gentle Giant album. But they did make it up with the next album, Civilian, which I think is a bit of a stronger album. Still not quite on the level of their previous early stuff, but there's still some good moments. It's definitely rocking in spots. Still has some moments I'm not too crazy about, but still decent album for them to go out with. Which it's kind of interesting how Gentle Giant knew they were not meant for the 80s, and honestly, I'm strange enough, I'm kind of glad they didn't really go beyond that. Moving along, we have another prog band. We have Nectar. We have A Tab in the Ocean. I really wanted to get more Nectar in the collection because I do enjoy what I've heard of them. I have Remember the Future. That's a really good album. And people usually say this is another essential one for the band. And yeah, this is another really good album. Again, love the vibe this band has. It's a little different from all the other contemporaries, but I think that's what helps them make them stand out. Just great melodies and great musicianship. And I even like the vocals. The vocals have a nice kind of cool tone to it that I really like. But yeah, if you want to get into Nectar, I'd suggest this one. So if you can recall, last month I bought quite a lot of Survivor, and that's still going to be an ongoing thing because here is some more. I have bought their second studio album called Premonition, and I believe it came out in 1981. And then, kind of skipping a few more years, we have 1986, When Seconds Count. So Premonition I'll talk about first, and I don't like how these Rock Candy reissues have this giant hype sticker on the front cover. It's just, and you know, these hype stickers are annoying to take off. It's not one of those stickers that's easy, you can easily remove. It's like a pain to do, and just leaves a big splotch on the jewel case. I'm literally considering I'm just replacing the front. But still, it was like a cheap option. But yeah, second album from Survivor, I think is a really good one. I think it's definitely a step up from their debut. You know, Chevy Nights, Summer Nights. Funny, the first two songs have nights in the title. Poor Man's Song is another good standout, and Light on a Thousand Smiles is pretty good. But yeah, I really dig this album. So now I have all the Dave Bickler era albums, so I'm pretty happy about that. And then we have this one. Of course, we have this one from '86, like I mentioned, and this one has Jimmy Jamerson on lead vocals. And this is another pretty good album. Like, again, I've been really digging Survivor lately. I've kind of been this kick for them. But How Much Love is really good. Is This Love? Like, that's probably one of their catchiest songs. Rebel Son, I like. Title track, In Good Faith, Can't Let Go. Yeah, it's another pretty strong album for them, especially this late in the game for them. But still, I really dug this one quite a bit. But now that I actually realized there's actually one more Survivor album I forgot, and it was just hidden away. Don't know how that happened, but let's quickly fix that, because we also have 1988's Too Hot to Sleep. So I will admit, this is when the band was starting to slip a little bit, because by this point, it was basically a trio. You have Jimmy Jamerson, you have Jim Peterick, who was the keyboardist and one of the principal songwriters, and then you also have the guitarist Frankie Sullivan. So it's just mainly those three, and yeah, I heard this one, and I don't know, the songs just weren't as memorable as some previous ones. There are still some decent ones here, but I don't know. This was definitely a big step down. Of course, during this time, friction was also been a big thing, and I think it shows. But I do have one more Survivor album I do need to get for the collection, so maybe I'll conclude that discography at some points. But we'll see how it goes. It's definitely a lot later down the road. And the last one in this category, we have Renaissance, and we have Azure Door. And this was from 1978 or 79? 79 it came out. So I got this just so I can have all the 70s albums from Renaissance. And so I think I don't have Camera. That was the first album in the 80s. So I just need to get that, and then I'll have a good continuous run until Timeline. But Azure Door, I keep saying, want to say more, but Azure Door, it's a very solid album. Again, I wouldn't say it's like one of their best albums, but it's still a pretty solid, decent one. There's still some nice moments, but you do kind of hear where they're going to be going into the age just a little bit. But again, Jekyll and Hyde's really nice. Golden Key, even the Discovery, which is instrumental, is actually pretty nice. Forever Changing, you know, let's see, only angels have wings. Again, I like it quite a bit, but I still think they have better ones. But at least I have all the 70s in the collection, all the 70s albums in the collection, just to specify. But really like that one. Okay, and now we've come to the last segment, and just like last month, is going to be the longest one because these are more CDs I picked up from the app Whatnot. Yeah, what can I say? There's so many good deals on Whatnot sometimes. So we're going to try and get through this one quick. So here we go. First up, we have another AC/DC album. We have another one of these like early 2000s albums, I think. We have Stiff Upper Lip. So yeah, we're kind of still building that collection, trying to get all the albums. And it's a decent album. Again, there's some good songs, but you know, it's an AC/DC album, and so if you've heard one, you probably know what to expect, especially at this point. But not necessarily a bad thing. Again, there's still some nice riffs. You know, Brian Johnson still sounds pretty good. But you know, again, this is more like middle of the road in terms of their albums, which, you know, what can I say? What can I say? Now we have Audio Slave, and this is their second album, Out of Exile. So I have their debut album, and that's really good. I actually really dug that one. And so I was wondering what their next album sounded like, and, you know, pretty good. I think the debut is still stronger, but again, there's still some nice songs on here. You know, Chris Cornell, again, great, of course, in terms of singing. 12 songs. Produced by Rick Rubin, so that might be a turnoff for some, but I don't think his production got in the way of things. But again, not as good as the debut, but still solid enough that I think is still worth checking out. Now here's a band I've been wanting to get more of. Here we have Bebop Deluxe with their debut album, Axe Victim. So very lucky to find this. I don't know how rare to find Bebop Deluxe CDs in the wild, but you know, Whatnot, you know, you might find some good gems here, and this is a really good find. And a very good debut album. I still prefer Sunburst Finish. That's still my favorite. But for a debut album from 1974, I think it's a pretty nice one to start. Again, you still have Bill, oh god, what's his, I always forget the guitarist's name. I know it's Bill something. Bill Nelson, of course, Bill Nelson. Again, really great guitar work still at this point. It's just really cool, sort of more, I don't know where you put them, kind of arty, kind of art rock almost, but very, very easy, accessible, I would say. So very nice to find this one. And now we have some more Bee Gees. I have an early one, and we have a more latter day one. So for the early one, we have Idea from 1968. And then from there, we have quite a big of a time jump. We have 1989's One. And starting with Idea. So probably the earliest Bee Gees album I have in my collection thus far. And I really like this one. I think in terms of the early period, this might be my favorite so far. Because you have some big hits like I've Got to Get a Message to You and I Started a Joke. But some of the deeper cuts I also really like. So Let There Be Love, Down to Earth, the title track, Kilburn Towers, Swan Song. I think the only song I wasn't crazy about is I've Decided to Join the Air Force. Don't know what that was about, but still a very nice early album from them. And, you know, I actually kind of like this one. Again, it's later period Bee Gees, not quite as immediate as some of their more late 70s stuff. But there's still some nice moments on here. My favorite song on here is probably going to go to Wish You Were Here, which is kind of like their tribute to Andy Gibb after he passed away the previous year. I think that's a very sweet song. One of my favorites. Kind of odd, this as a bonus song, you have You Win Again, which is, I think, was on the previous album. Kind of odd choice, but still cool to find more Bee Gees. And now we get something more heavy. We have Blue Murder with their self-titled debut. Of course, notable about Blue Murder is that you have John Sykes, very great guitar player. Of course, he was in Whitesnake and he was briefly in Thin Lizzy for one album, their final album. And here he is partnering up with, I think it was Tony Franklin on bass. And then you have Carmine Appice on drums. So essentially, you kind of got a little bit of a super group here. So there's the band right there. Yeah, I knew I wanted to check it out, but I came out really enjoying this one. You know, I've heard John Sykes sing before on a different song. Of course, there's one of his more later ones from the 2000s, and it was for an opening for an anime. Shout out to this video. And his voice were not bad on that song, but probably maybe he's a bit older in that one, so maybe that's why he didn't really, not the greatest singer. But on this album, he sounds a lot better. Pretty good. Kind of fits the job as the singer. But yeah, 9 songs on here, and it's good guitar work, of course, heavy drumming for a late period 80s rock album. This is probably one you want to give a try. I think you'll be surprised with this one. And now to kind of bring things down a little bit, we have some more soft rock. We have Bread, I'm a Wantcha. So Bread, you know, one of those soft rock acts from the 70s that I wasn't sure if I was going to buy, but again, this was cheap. And, you know, might as well give it a go. And I came out kind of liking it. I'm not saying I'm in love with bread or anything. I mean, I eat bread for breakfast, but that's a whole different discussion. But in terms of the music, you know, it's pretty chill. You know, nothing heavy or anything. It's just some nice, pleasant music you can just put on anytime you want to just kind of vibe, or if you're stressed or anything, maybe this will calm you down. Not sure. But, you know, you have the titles track. You have quite a few hits on here. So in terms of Bread, I think this is one you might want to check out. But again, I don't have too much to say, honestly. And we have Chicago. It's been a bit since I picked up more Chicago. We have their Chicago 5. So yeah, so at this point I only need one more, and then I'll have all the studio albums with Terry Kath. I think I'm missing Chicago 3. And I know there's Chicago 4, but that's a live album, and there's other like miscellaneous things here and there. But yeah, Chicago 5. Of course, you have some big songs on here, like Dialogue, Part 1 and 2, and Saturday in the Park. And some other good songs like Alma Mater, and then a hit of, I don't know how to say that V word, All Is Well, State of the Union, Goodbye. It's another great Chicago album. And again, I'm still looking for Chicago 3, so we'll see if I get that pretty soon. And here we have Crosby, Stills, and Nash. We have Live It Up from 1990. And I really got it just so I can say I have the hot dog cover on CD. Yeah, not a good cover, and also not a good album. This is probably the worst album they've probably done so far. Again, there's songs that are just okay, but you know, Crosby, Stills, and Nash in the 80s, yeah, they were not really meant for this decade. I think they went overboard on the production, and the songs just weren't that memorable. It was just kind of one of those chores to get through. But you know, the hot dog cover's probably the most interesting thing about this. Next up, we have Culture Club, and we have Color by Numbers. So I wasn't sure if I was ever going to get Culture Club albums, but you know, this has Karma Chameleon on here. And you know, I thought, you know, let's give an album a shot. Maybe there's more to them besides some of the singles. And you know, it didn't wow me, but you know, I liked it enough. You know, Boy George, you know, I do dig his voice quite a bit. You know, he has a soulful quality to him. But you know, again, some of the music was just okay. Again, not sure if I'll get more, but you know, maybe if they're cheap, maybe I'll pick it up. But you know, not the strongest impression. Aside from Karma Chameleon, that's still a great song. Now we have Deep Purple. We have a more latter period one. We have 2005, Rapture of the Deep. Okay, so still building my Deep Purple collection. So very happy to find this. Of course, you have Steve Morse on guitar and Don Airey on keyboards, but you still have Ian Gillan, Ian Pace, Roger Glover, the usual guys. And I did find this to be a very strong album. Again, it has some proggy type moments, and I think Don Airey really shines on the keyboards on this album. He's probably the MVP on this album, if you ask me. But Money Talks is good. Girls Like That. Don't Let Go. Let's see, Junkyard Blues. It's, again, pretty good album. Really glad to find more Deep Purple. I'm just getting there. I know they have an album coming out later this year, so I already pre-ordered that. And there's still some other albums in like the latter period I still need to get. So hopefully, maybe this year we'll get the whole discography. We'll never know. Okay, now here's one I didn't expect on getting, but for the price, I just couldn't resist. We have Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Black Moon. This was their comeback after being dormant or at least broken up for quite a long time. And so after all that time, was the comeback worth it? I mean, it's actually not bad. I don't know, I think I might like this more than Love Beach, at least. But you know, it's just kind of okay. You know, Greg Lake still sounds all right. You know, Keith Emerson still killing on the keyboards, and you know, Carl Palmer just holding down the groove. But you know, there's nothing here that's like a masterpiece or a late period masterpiece. It's just kind of, you know, if you want to hear more Emerson, Lake and Palmer beyond the 70s, you know, maybe you'll kind of dig it a little bit, but don't expect something like mind-blowing. Okay, now here's something my older audience can kind of tune out for a bit, because I have Imagine Dragons, Night Visions. However, shout out to my man Adam from What the Gym. I know he's a big fan of this band. So again, I didn't think I would get Imagine Dragons in the collection, but, you know, I'm slowly trying to shed my prejudice of older music, and ironically, this came out in 2013. So yeah, I was just entering my teenage years at this point. But some of these songs I know ever since I was around that time. So I still vividly remember Radioactive, and Demons was probably my favorite song from Imagine Dragons, and I think it still is my favorite song. So another reason why I wanted to get it, because I like Demons a lot. But after giving it a listen, I will say I found myself liking this a lot more than I did. I know my older audience are going to cringe at me saying that, but whatever. But yeah, you know, it's just catchy, you know, pop rock. I mean, people debate if Imagine Dragons are even rock to begin with. But you know, I think they're rock enough. Kind of more rockin', well, at least in this time frame. But you know, I actually kind of found myself kind of liking it. So call this a guilty pleasure, if you will. And here we have INXS. Welcome to Wherever You Are. Now, one thing I should point out, this is another one of those cases where I did not buy this intentionally. This was yet again an example of just buying CDs from a seller, and I guess the seller decided to throw in this for free. So that's kind of why. So this is my first INXS album. So for first impression, honestly, I wasn't into this one. Because I looked it up, this was in the 90s, and so they decided to go for a more alternative rock approach. And I don't know, it just didn't really click for me all that much. So I'm still keeping it, because again, it was free. But I don't know, I just wasn't really into this one for some reason. So maybe I need to give it another chance, because I heard this is actually one of their more well-liked albums, which is odd. One thing also worth noting about this CD, this is now my second album in my collection that has this weird kind of more unique packaging. The only other one that has it is Summer in Paradise by the Beach Boys. So, I mean, this album is way better than Summer in Paradise. I will give it that, but I don't know. There's that. So, because I was kind of disappointed with that INXS album, I knew I had to give this band another go, because I know they're pretty well liked. And so, what I did, I bought another one. So, I did went out and bought Kick from 1987. And I think this is their best-selling album. And yeah, this is a lot better than the last one I just showed. You know, the songs were definitely more memorable, and you have some big hits on here. You know, Never Tear Us Apart is probably one of the biggest hits on here. But I like this one a lot more. I think I do prefer their more 80s material quite a bit. So it's good that I actually do like a little bit of INXS. I'm not going to say so far I'm not a diehard fan or anything. But still, it goes to show that I do have, there's still hope for me about that band. And we have two more albums from the same band. Here is Iron Maiden, and here we have two albums from their 90s period, and you know what that means. So if you know, you know. So we have 1995 with the X Factor, and then a couple years later, in 1980 and 98, we have Virtual 11. So these two albums were during a period where Bruce Dickinson had quit the band and they got a new singer by the name of Blaze Bayley. And these albums are often very much not big fans to a lot of fans because, you know, Blaze is nowhere near as good as Bruce Dickinson. And people say that the music kind of suffered a bit. And so I knew I had to get these eventually just so I can get more Maiden albums, because it's been a long time since I picked up more Iron Maiden CDs. And after giving these two a listen, what do I think? Are they underrated gems, or are do they deserve the hate they get? I mean, I wouldn't say, I think hate's a strong word. I don't think they're terrible, but I will say, yeah, these are probably some of the weakest albums I've heard from this band. And I do agree, Blaze just wasn't a good fit. You know, his singing style just wasn't meant for this type of heavy metal music. And I've heard his solo stuff is often pretty highly rated. People say he's much better on the solo stuff than he is on these two albums. But they're kind of in the same boat for me. If I were to pick which one I liked more, I think I might prefer the X Factor. Maybe because it's a bit darker, and I kind of like the darker edge. This one is a little bit more forgettable, and probably has one, and also the songs get a lot more repetitive. Like, there are definitely songs where it's nothing but Blaze just repeating the same line over and over again. It gets really annoying. But yeah, so I think this one's slightly better, but honestly, these aren't really mandatory. And here we have another case where I bought two from the same band, if you will. Of course, you could make the argument it's kind of a solo artist. And that person is Joan Jett. More specifically, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I have I Love Rock and Roll. And then, again, skipping a few years later, we have Up Your Alley. So I don't know why. For a long time, I never had any interest in checking out Joan Jett. I just don't know why I thought that. Mainly because I was never crazy about I Love Rock and Roll. I know, that might be a hot take. I mean, I don't hate that song. I mean, I think I've grown to like it more over time, but it's never been my favorite, like, radio rock anthem, if you will. But I think it was time to see if Joan Jett is more than just that. And after giving these two albums a listen, I will say, yeah, definitely a lot better than I gave Joan Jett credit for. You know, I Love Rock and Roll, again, it's probably my favorite of the two. Even though I'm still not the biggest fan of I Love Rock and Roll, I think the rest of the album is really strong. Good memorable hooks on here, and I think Joan is still a pretty good rock singer in her own right. I just really dug this one, really enjoyed this one. And that's not to take away from this one. I think this is another very strong album, especially this late in the 80s. This had the big hit, I Hate Myself for Loving You. That's a great song. And, you know, Riding with James Dean, Little Liar, I want to be your dog. That's a weird title. I Still Dream About You. It's a good late 80s rock album. So pretty nice. So Joan Jett, might check out more from her in the future. We'll see where it goes. But of course, if you have recommendations, let me know in the comments. Then we have Journey, and we have another more latter period one. We have Generations. So I'm only one album away from having every Journey album. I think I'm only missing Eclipse. Hopefully I'll get that soon. So we have Generations. Again, you have the second and last one with Steve or Jerry on lead vocals. I still can't quite, I'm not 100% sure I said his last name right. But this is an interesting album, to say the least. I will say, I'm not sure yet. This might be my least favorite Journey album I've heard. You know, again, Steve and Jerry still sounds fine. But what's interesting about this album is that every single member takes a stab at the lead vocals, which some of it's okay. And others I'm like, yeah, don't ever, please stick to the backing vocals. I mean, I think probably the other member besides Steve that sounds actually really good is the drummer, who at this point was Dean Castronovo. I think he's a pretty strong singer. And then Neil, Jonathan, I think Ross, Valerie even has a song. Yeah, they were the weakest part of the album. Again, not horrible, but yeah, it didn't really make a good overall listening experience. Again, there's some good songs here and there, but the rest is just kind of mediocre. So Iron Maiden had their stint in the 90s where they had a different lead singer. Well, here's Judas Priest with their turn. We have Jugulator, and this one you have Tim Ripper Owens on vocals after Rob Halford had left. And I'm assuming these things are pretty rare to come by. I was actually shocked to find this one for a good price on Whatnot. But before I actually talk about the music, I gotta mention the album cover. Like, it's hard, you probably can't tell, but it is so blurry. Like, this is probably the worst res, like the lowest res you can possibly do for an album cover. And I thought the issue on my Black Sabbath Forbidden CD issue was bad. So what happened was, so if you take out the disc, you get the full artwork, and I don't know why, whose idea was it, but apparently they decided to just zoom the heck into this image, hence why it looks like that. So I don't know, kind of a wasted potential on the album cover side of things. But in terms of the music, I will say it's still pretty decent. Definitely better than the Maiden stuff. But you know, Tim Ripper Owens, he's a fine singer. You know, I think he's pretty good. I think he was a pretty good fit. But musically, it's a little bit goes on the more generic side. Again, there's still some good moments here, like especially Tim carrying it. But you know, again, there's just some songs that I just thought were just fine to being pretty decent. So again, not mandatory, but if you're willing to give it a chance, you might be surprised. Who knows? This hasn't been a CD haul without this band coming up. And yep, it's more Kiss. And we have 3 more. I have Unmasked from 1980. And then we have Music from the Elder from 81. And then skipping a few years after that, we have 1987's Crazy Nights. Alright, so this is going to be an interesting discussion. So Unmasked, I'll talk about first. I actually quite like this album. I think I don't know where it's rated among Kiss fans, but I think it's kind of underrated. Because I actually do like the more power pop sort of approach they have on here. I think all the songs were actually pretty good. You know, there's not really a song I didn't like, which might be a hot take. But I think Unmasked is pretty good. So I'm not sure where it would rank, but I'd say it's pretty nice. But then after that, it gets a bit messy. So Music of the Elder, it's basically Kiss doing a stab at progressive rock, even though it's 1981, where that was definitely not cool. Often seen as one of the worst albums from the band. You know, I get, but there are some people who do defend it, and I do understand people defending this album because it is very different. I don't know. I don't think I'm one of them though. I don't know. Kiss doing prog rock. I don't know. It just doesn't compute. And the story that they're trying to go for, it's kind of. I don't really pay it. Was really that enamored with it. It wasn't really worth my time. But you know, it's an interesting album in their discography. But maybe one I won't really go back to that often. And similar thing can be said about Crazy Nights. You know, this is them in the late 80s now. They're trying to go for that hair metal scene. Some of it works, some of them I think they're trying a little too hard. The production, you know, I don't mind this sort of 80s production. But you know, sometimes it does get a bit much. But yeah, and the songs themselves, I don't think were that remarkable. So yeah, another kind of weak album in my opinion in terms of Kiss. But you know, I'm still on that quest to get all their albums as well, so I'm getting there. And here we have more metal. Here is King Diamond with his album Them. Okay, so very cool to find more King Diamond in the collection. I really do dig some King Diamond. You know, he's one of those like high-pitched shriekers, kind of like a Rob Halford almost. I really like that style. And Them is a pretty good one. You know, another kind of horror-themed concept album. I'm not gonna get into the story, we'll be here for a while. But all I gotta say is that it's another really strong one, very good. And yeah, really like his solo stuff quite a bit. More on him in a bit later. And here we have Linkin Park. We have The Hunting Party. Kind of them, I've heard this is kind of them going back to their roots, if you will. But I don't know. I haven't heard anything past their third album. So I don't know what happened in between. But still pretty good. I like this one. Though I will admit, of the Linkin Park albums I've heard, this is probably my least favorite right now. I didn't think the songs were that memorable. But there's some decent enough moments here. But again, still not quite my thing overall. I think I prefer their last album with Emily Armstrong over this one. So again, might be a hot take. Here's another really nice find. We have some more Lynyrd Skynyrd, and this is Lynyrd Skynyrd 1991. The big comeback after being pretty much inactive after the plane crash. So you have Johnny Van Zant on the lead vocals, and you have a couple old members still in the band, like Billy Powell, I think, is still here. Gary Rosington is here still. And I don't think there's any other former members here. I mean you still have Artemis Pyle still in the band. And Leon Wilson on bass. Ed King's even on guitar. So you still got a good chunk of the surviving members here. And I think another strong album. I think to start this kind of new era of the band, I think they start off on a really good note. Good guitar work, and again, I think he fits in the band pretty well. I know he's never going to truly replace Ronnie, but I think even Johnny would admit, it's like, there's no way he can truly replace his brother. But he's just honoring him, and that's kind of what I get. It's just Johnny and the rest of the band kind of honoring those that are no longer with us. And yeah, pretty nice find. I talked about King Diamond a bit ago, but here was the band he was originally part of. We have In the Shadows, 1993. This is actually their comeback album because they were kind of broken up for a period when King Diamond wanted to go solo. But this is really good. I think I might prefer this over the King Diamond album just by a bit. Very heavy. Again, King's vocals are just absolutely incredible, and just absolutely just good listen overall. In terms of 90s metal, this is probably, I'm not sure, maybe not top 10, but definitely one of the big ones I would definitely go back to. So excellent find. I definitely want to check out even their early stuff. I want to see if I can find at some point. Then we have Metallica Reload. So for a while, I've had Load, but not Reload. And funny enough, speaking of both Load and Reload, a lot of you saw one of my recent videos where I talked about 10 albums that I love, but people hate. And funny enough, in the comments, a good chunk of people really said both these two out, Load and Reload. I haven't heard Load in a while, so I can't really give my opinions on this one. But after giving this a listen, where do I land? It's okay. Next up, we have No Control from Eddie Money from 1982. So I was kind of disappointed with the last Eddie Money album I bought, but I think this will be a better one since I think this is his best-selling album, because you have some pretty big songs on here like Shakin' and Think I'm in Love. And yeah, it's definitely a better album than the last one I bought, because I think the songs here are a lot more memorable. And, you know, again, there's still some songs on here that I'm not that crazy about. But I think this is definitely much stronger than what I've heard. I don't know if he gets better than this, but I still want to get that album with Take Me Home Tonight. I still want to get that album. And now we have another band I have been wanting to get more of for a long time, but they're surprisingly hard to come by. And that is Motorhead. We got 2 albums to talk about. We have Bomber, and then following that, we got their live album, No Sleep Till Hammersmith. Yeah, so glad to get more Motorhead. I mean, these are probably more on the pricier side, I will admit, especially this one. But Bomber, again, still in that early period of them. I think it's their third studio album, and still excellent stuff. Very heavy. You know, the bass is just this very fuzzed out, distorted, but still awesome. And great guitar work from Eddie Clark and Filthy Animal Taylor on drums. I mean, it's just absolutely stuff. And Lemmy still sounds like the Lemmy we know and love. So great finds. And I will say their live album is also really strong. Another one, probably one of the better live albums I've heard. It has all the songs you want to hear, heavy and produced really well. Not much to say, but again, very happy to find more early Motorhead. But again, they're just so pricey, man. And here's some Opeth. We have Ghost Reveries. So, of course, Opeth, known for their progressive death metal sound, and this is when they were still in that sort of vein. Of course, I'm not sure when exactly, but I know they're going to kind of lose the death metal part for a few years, and I think only recently they brought the death metal back. But still, you've got the good blend, and pretty strong. I like this one. This could be one I need to give more listens to because it's kind of on the long side. So it's a lot to take in on your first listen. But from what I gather on the first go, pretty decent. I liked it. Back to the 80s, we have Steve Perry with his first solo album with Street Talk. All right, so cool to find this one. I've actually been meaning to get this one for some time because there's some songs on here I really do like. Of course, you have Oh Sherry, and then you have Foolish Heart, which are the big songs on here, which are great. But other songs that I really dug were Go Away, It's Only Love, and another good, nice hit discovery was Cut in the Moment. I've played that song quite a bit since I've heard this album. But yeah, a strong start for Steve Perry's solo career. And I think this is where he kind of peaked, because I don't really think his other solo albums were really as big as this one. Not even his comeback solo album not that long ago, Traces, which is actually kind of decent. I actually did like that one, but yeah, this will probably be his best solo album. And we have two from Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. We have the live album, Live Bullets. And in the same year, we have Night Moves. Yeah, Bob Seger is always one of those people that gets brought up. You always hear some of his songs on the radio, but for a long time I never had any of them until now. The live album is actually pretty good, pretty decent. If we were to go back to that live album video I did not long ago, I would probably put this in the good section. Had some good moments. And of course, you have probably the definitive version of Turn the Page. That's a good version right there. But Night Moves is also really pretty strong. I really like the title track, and some of the singles on here were really good. It's just a good rock album overall. Again, don't have much to say, but it's enjoyable rock music. If you don't want anything too serious, you just want something to just make you feel good. And yeah, Bob Seger's there for you. Okay, and now we're going back to a little bit closer to some of my heritage. We have Selena, and we have Dreaming of You from 1995, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so Selena, she was a pretty prominent kind of Mexican, I guess, Tejano, because that's the technical term for the genre she was a part of. Often also cited as Tex-Mex music. Take that for what you will. But Selena was kind of a rising star. A lot of her albums were started out, Spanish focused music. But then by around this point, she really wanted to break into the mainstream. And I think this album was supposed to be her big breakthrough, her big international commercial breakthrough. And in some way it was, but there is a tragedy to this album because I believe this came out not long after she was tragically killed by one of her she started out as a fan, but then she got crazy and was a member of her kind of leader of her fan club, and there was a whole money thing going on, and it just resulted in her being killed at a very, very young age. And so it's kind of a little bit of a sad thing about this album. A big what could have been. But, you know, the album did prove to be successful. And giving it a listen, I really found myself enjoying this one. I'll be honest, I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. I didn't think I was going to like, because I knew the title song. I love the title song, just a great pop ballad. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like everything else, but I was surprised. You know, the first half is more English focused, but the second half, she does still hold on to her roots, because I think the second half is mostly Spanish. But I still think both sides has some really good pop moments on here. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe the story, maybe her story, maybe is influencing this a little bit, but I don't know. I think I think this was a good pop album for the 90s. Rest in peace, Selena. Next up, we have Supertramp. We have Famous Last Words from 1982. Okay, so this is the big follow-up to Breakfast in America, one of my all-time favorite albums of all time. And this was kind of a disappointment, a little bit. The songs here I felt were just not as memorable as the last one. Again, not bad. There's still some nice moments here. It doesn't help that some of the songs, you know, especially the second half, the songs go from 5 to 6 minutes, which, you know, again, there's not bad, but I don't know, they just didn't really grab my attention as much. So, I mean, I've seen some people rate this kind of highly. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be one of them, unfortunately. So I'm kind of sad on that one. And then we got a band called Vixen. This is their second album from 1990 called Rev It Up. So if you don't know Vixen, they're an all-female kind of hair metal, glam metal band. So one of the big ones in terms of all-female bands. So this is my first introduction to them, and I dug it. I kind of like this one. I would want to hear their first album, because I've heard their first album is even better than this. I still like this one, but I think I would want to hear the debut, because there's some good songs on here, but you know, it's definitely a little on the longer side. And again, I like the vocals, and the music is still pretty rocking, but I didn't really get I didn't have a song on here to me that was like, oh my god, I'm gonna go back to this song no matter what. I didn't really have any experiences like that, but still, it's still a pretty decent album for the most part. But still, glad to check out Vixen, but I'm gonna see what their debut would sound. Now this is gonna be a little bit different. These last two I'm gonna show for now are kind of more in sleeves, like paper sleeves. So for example, here we have an EP. This is from a duo known as Leaving Thomas, and this EP is called The Ground Floor. Kind of like that 90s INXS album I showed earlier. This is another one of those cases where I didn't buy this. I just got this for free. I don't know why, but still, it's free. So this is like an acoustic pop album. It's a very short, its EP length was a little less than 30 minutes. Not bad, actually. I came in with very low expectations, but the acoustic guitar playing was nice, and the female singer was pretty good. Just don't know what else I would go back for, but if you like acoustic music, then you might like this one. It might be up your alley. And the last one, and I only got this for a very specific reason, so let me show you. So this is a CD single, and this is the Led Zeppelin single of Immigrant Song as the A side, and on the B side you have Hey Hey What Can I Do? And the only reason I got this was only because I can say I have it on CD and on the original 45. You will see a picture of it right now. So I think it's kind of nice to find a CD version of that 45. I think it would be kind of novel. I don't have much to say, but I just thought it would be funny. Of course, Immigrant Song we love, and even the B-side, Hey Hey What Can I Do? Really nice really good B-side. Can't believe it was never on an album. Alright, so that is all the CDs I have in front of me, but I ain't done yet. I actually have more CDs coming, but they haven't arrived in the mail yet. and I really don't want to wait and put them in the June CD haul for a reason I'll explain later. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scooch over a little bit because I'm going to look down at my floor, because if you didn't know, there's a time warp on the floor near my desk, and I'm going to look down and talk to future Bryer, and by then future Bryer will have the CDs, and he's going to unbox them for you right now. So take it away, future Bryer. Why, thank you, past Bryer. So here are the remaining CDs, and we have one in a giant box. So let's just get this one out of the way. Yeah, this one was already open when I got it. So anyway, in here we have Survivor with their album Reach. So now officially I own every Survivor album on CD. This is from 2006, so very late because the last album was in '88. So we'll see how this album turned. Was it worth the wait? We'll find out. But let's go ahead. Let's open this one right here. So let's go ahead and rip it open. And in here we have The Boys of Dungeon Lane from Paul McCartney. This is his latest album he just came out with. As you can see, it came in this kind of little mini, almost like a little mini LP sort of replica. Just real quick, let me see if I can just open it up. I'm just curious to see what's inside. Actually, wasn't that hard to remove, actually. Let me make sure I don't cut myself in the process. Slide everything out. You just get this little outer sleeve. I guess this is where the CD is. And you get a pretty thick booklet. Like, it's actually pretty thick with all the lyrics. That's kind of cool. Let's just see what the disc looks like. Pretty nice, pretty simple. And that's cool that you have all the images of the Beatles on there. That's kind of a nice little tribute. So there we go. So that's Paul McCartney's latest album. So we'll see how this one goes. It's almost like the Survivor. Was it worth the wait? Because the last album, McCartney 3, was some time ago. I know that album's kind of mixed among fans. So again, we'll find out where I land. But there we go. McCartney with his latest album, The Boys in Dungeon Lane. And yes, I did in fact cut myself from that shrink wrap. Lovely! And after cleaning my hand off a little bit, let's continue on. Let's open up and let's see what's inside this box. By the way, these CDs did come from Whatnot. Okay, this should be all of them. Let's move all that to the side. All right, let's take these out one by one. First one we have Red Hot Chili Peppers with By the Way. This came out in early 2000s, 2002, I think. So just kind of continuing my little free card. Continuing my little mini deep dive into the band. And I will say, this is not a request or Scott making me listen to it. Well, he kind of hinted at it, but I decided to check this out on my own just to continue on, see if I like any more albums from this band. So that's cool to get. And after this, we have, so this is interesting. So this is actually Dream Theater with their self-titled album from 2013, but this is not the original case it came in. This is kind of like a disc-only copy, but it still came with the booklet. So I decided to get these anyway. I'm hoping maybe one day I'll transfer this into an actual jewel case, because I'm pretty sure you can go online and find the image of the back cover and then put it in a normal jewel case. So I might just do that in the future, but still cool to get more Dream Theater. And here is yet another one of these slim cases, disc only, whatever you want to call these. This is from Mr. Big, and this album's called Bump Ahead. This is actually the follow-up to their last album. I'm blanking on the name, but I'll show an image of it. So that was a big seller for them, and this is like the follow-up. So I don't see Mr. Big albums too often, so I decided to spring for it. So I don't know what to expect of that one. Then we have Yngwie Malmsteen with Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force, and this is his album Odyssey. This is a pretty cool find. This time we have Jolyn Turner on lead vocals, who has worked with Rainbow. So really cool to find another one more albums from Yngwie. So I did like the last one, but I think I've heard this one might be a little bit better for me. So we'll see where I land with that one. Then from here we have Vixen. Now, and if you saw past Bryer, he had the second album, but now I have the first album. So that's a pretty cool, neat thing to find. I'm not going to talk about the band because you should have heard that earlier. So there's the band right there. So that's cool. And here's yet another one of these. We got Alice Cooper with Constrictor. Again, same story as the other two I showed, so maybe one day we'll put these in a real jewel case. Almost there. Okay, we have Iron Maiden, No Prayer for the Dying. So now I have every Iron Maiden album from the debut up until I think Brave New World, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm only missing a few more Iron Maiden albums. So maybe we'll get the whole discography pretty soon. And the last CD in here, it's pretty cool find. We have Fate's Warning with the album No Exit. So Fate's Warning is a progressive metal band, kind of on the same plane as Queensryche from what I can gather. So I'm very happy to find, and people say this is actually a pretty good album. This came out in 1988, I think. So awesome find indeed. So with that all said, that is all the CDs that I picked up. Let me quickly find the other CDs we boxed up, and then we can put them all together. And there you go. That's all the remaining CDs I bought throughout the month of May. So without further ado, let's go back to the past and let past Bryer close out the video. Thank you, future Bryer. Okay, so there you have it. Now that is all the CDs I have acquired throughout the month of May. And future Bryer will also have those CDs listened to, and he'll send me over the ranking, which you'll see right now. And again, these CDs are going to be qualified for the end of the year top 50 discoveries of 2026. So again, look forward to that when we get close to the end of the year. But that's going to do it for me this month. And let me quickly explain the reason why I didn't want to postpone those CDs to June. And I feel like it's about that time. I usually do this once a year, maybe twice a year, where I think I'm going to take a little break from collecting because I think I need to start saving money again, especially during the summer, because when summer hits, that's where I'm at my busiest in terms of my day job. So wish me luck on that. But we'll see what we have in store for June. I know I have some big projects coming in the works, so look forward to those when they're done. But in the meantime, hopefully you enjoyed this monthly CD haul. If you did, again, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and comment below your thoughts on any of the albums that I showed, and comment below what you picked up throughout the month of May. But until then, I will see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye for now.